So we're still waiting on a few of our board members and we'll get started. But I just want to let everyone know if it's your first time at one of our virtual public meetings, we mute everybody from the beginning. You're unable to unmute yourself. So the way you'll participate in the meeting is when the time comes for you to participate in speaking or whatever, you'll need to use the raise hand feature in the participants menu. So you can find the participants menu at the bottom of your screen right now. It has the word participants. It has an icon of two people standing next to each other, and then a number next to it. Right now that number is 15. So if you open up that participants menu, you'll see a new box that appears, and in the bottom corner of that box, you'll see the button that says raise hand. And so when you click on that raise hand button, you come up to the top of our list of participants, our co-chairs, Chuck Warren and Craig Later. They'll be able to see you and they'll recognize you and call on you to be unmuted. I'll unmute you. You may need to click a button on the bottom of your screen to confirm unmuting. So just be looking out for that too as it comes up. So if anyone has any questions about how the meeting is run and how to use Zoom, you can always chat me through the chat box.
Do you not want those? Were you throwing those away? Those two that I just put on you? You have two on the counter here.
I can hear some background noise from one of the two of you.
Oh, maybe it's coming from Craig.
It was. I think it may have been his son.
Ready to go?
It's 6:30 and I don't see more people signing in right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, let you guys take control.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the meeting of the Transportation Committee of Community Board 8. I'm a co-chair, Chuck Warren, and my other co-chair is Craig Later.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
And why don't we get to the agenda? The first item on the agenda is something that we back for reconsideration, a revocable consent application for a proposed fenced-in area, including steps, planters, together with a snow melt system in front of 106 East 78th Street. This is a revised application. Is there someone here from the applicant?
Anik, is that you?
Yes, Anik Pearson, I will be presenting this project
Okay,
application. If you're ready, should I share the screen, Will? Is that how?
Yes, you're great to go.
Okay.
go ahead. Mr. Pearson.
Okay, can everyone see this screen? And can everyone hear me? Is this all clear?
Yes, all clear.
So this application is to modify an existing areaway, which is at 106 East 78th Street between Lexington and Park Avenue on the south side of the street. This is a property just east of 875 Park Avenue, and next to it are two identical townhouses built by the same family in the late 1860s. And so each of these townhouses has an areaway in front of them, and as do other properties down the block. On the south side of the street, if you look at the pictures on the bottom, it is showing our existing townhouse, I'm sorry, looking north, looking south from the curb. In front of the existing fence that extends past the property line, there is a tree pit, and the distance between the tree pit and the existing fence is 8 feet. We're not proposing to expand the areaway at all. Contrary to our last application, it was to expand the areaway. For this proposal, we're just proposing to rebuild the areaway on its current footprint, which is 8 feet clearance from the tree pit on the sidewalk. This block has extended areaways that go past the property line on both sides of the street. Our clearance being 8 feet, there are other clearances down the street that are much less, the smallest one at 4'10" only. So the existing sidewalk is quite large compared to the pinch points further east. On the other side of the street is the same condition where the smallest pinch point is at 5'6". And again, our existing and proposed fence extension will remain at 8 feet clearance from the sidewalk, from the tree pit, I'm sorry. So here on the left of this page, we see the existing fence and our existing townhouse facade. Next to it is the proposed fence and proposed townhouse facade. The fence is straight as opposed to varying in depth as it is now in existing condition. We are planning to straighten this fence across the 8-foot clearance to the tree pit, and to dig down so that one can get to the ground floor level of the townhouse, which is 3 feet below the sidewalk. So it would create a clear landing across the 2 front doors of the townhouse, which are sunken below the sidewalk by 3 feet. There's an existing planter, which is not built into the sidewalk on inside of the fenced in area. We're proposing to expand this planter so that it goes almost across the whole face of that fence, and also to have an in-ground planter for a climbing plant to climb up the face of the townhouse. So we're proposing to expand the green space of this areaway, as well as modifying the fence aesthetic itself. And finally, as was previously approved by the community board at our last hearing, is a proposal to heat the sidewalk with the snow melt system below the sidewalk level. so that the snow melt system would extend for the full width of the townhouse from the sidewalk at the curb back to the townhouse facade. So that the snow melt system would be maintained and in use and help to clear the snow and ice from the sidewalk in the winter. Did I omit or forget anything that you would like me to cover? I'm happy to scroll back to the first page.
We'll get the questions and maybe that'll, you can answer them then.
Okay.
Okay, so normally our procedure is to go to the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to ask a question or speak on this application? You should use the icon that raises your hand. So Will Brightbill who's coordinating this, can see that.
Just a reminder for anybody on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. And for everyone else, you can find that icon in the participants menu at the bottom of your screen. I don't see any members of the public.
Okay, no members. Then let's go to the board. Members of the board that want to comment or ask questions. Why don't
So far you have Michelle and Alita.
Okay, but Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you. Couple of questions. With the snow, let me go to the snow melt. The snow melt is it inside the areaway and the sidewalk up until the curb?
Yes.
Oh, so it's both. Is that what you had presented last time?
Yes.
Okay, so we have it. We answered all our questions about access, repairs and everything. My recollection is that they are done from inside. You have access to the vault under the areaway. Is that correct? And there's a drain?
Yes.
Am I
Exactly. You're remembering exactly right. We're not
Okay.
changing any of that. Yes.
Okay, that's the same. All right. So what you are changing though, you're not expanding, but you are changing this fence. So what you're proposing, let me understand, because my computer is out being repaired. So I'm on my phone, so it's small. So this fence is now going to go all the way across one doorway, so that access will be only down the steps in front of one doorway, and then the access to the other doorway is only from the areaway and no longer from the sidewalk. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so I'm seeing it correctly. I have to say, I'm not hysterical over that, but aesthetically, I think it really ruins the balance of it all. I'm looking at the sketch that you have, and the length of that newly proposed fence is how long, how big?
It is, sorry, let me try to add these two numbers together. It's about, it's about 15 feet. No,
Yeah,
sorry.
and how,
Yeah,
and
12,
how high?
about 13 feet and 36 inches high.
And the one that you're replacing, which is the fence that's between the two doorways, how big is that? Because this looks like it's almost 2.5 times that size. Is that about right?
It's less than twice. It's the fence section in the middle is 7'3", and then the two ends are 11 and 10 inches each. So all of that adds up to about 9 feet of fence.
Okay, but the center part, which is the bulk, is how many feet? Is only
7'3".
Yeah, and the other is 13, so it is almost twice the amount. I have to say it looks very heavy, and it looks a bit lopsided. Now, I don't think that this is under for consideration tonight, but I just want to be sure. The window and the facade that you have in the existing versus the windows and the facade that you have in the proposed are different. But is that that's not in consideration tonight, correct?
Correct. Landmarks has approved our facade design, and they requested that we have 9/9 gridded windows to restore it back to the original
The
historic.
original. Okay, that's good. That was at the staff level?
No, it was a full hearing.
Oh, okay. All right, that's good. I'm very pleased that you're not extending the areaway, so I thank you for that correction. I really am pleased that you came back to us. The snow melt is fine with me. I'm really not too happy with the new bulk of the fence, but let's hear what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, was Alita? Alita was next, I think.
Thank
Alita,
you.
you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Will had to unmute me. Thanks, Chuck. I'm just wondering why the applicant is not coming back to landmarks over the fence and the planters that are in the areaway, particularly because the fence is extending. I know that it has been, and you're not further extending the areaway into the public space, but it already extends beyond the areaway. So why are you not going back to landmarks?
We are. We received approval for our last design. We have a certificate of appropriateness from Landmarks, but we have gone back to them for a post-approval amendment to shorten the areaway so that it does not extend past the existing.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I meant to come back before the CB8 Landmarks Committee about the fence and the planters. And I know this isn't transportation issue, Chuck, but as long as the applicant is here and raising these issues.
Oh, because the fence design did not change, and they had already approved the fence at the CB8 hearing.
They didn't approve this fence. Did they approve a fence? I mean, I was at that meeting. Did we approve a fence that we were focused on some other issues. Did we approve a fence that extended almost twice the length and of the change design and with different planters in that area?
Well, the application was approved at that hearing. So, and that the design that I presented last time, yes.
And it was this fence?
Yes.
Okay, but not over the second door.
Yes, it was over the second door.
Okay, then my mistake. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other, are there any other members that want to talk on this?
There are. You have Jordan, Marco, Michelle again, and Rita.
Okay, why don't we take Jordan?
Hi, thank you very much. Ms. Pearson, thank you so much for pulling back and leaving us the full sidewalk and not intruding into it anymore. I really appreciate you heard us on it. I have a couple of questions about the snow melt system. What is the energy source? Is this for the snow melt system?
There's a boiler inside the townhouse that heats up, the system for heating up the townhouse inside the mechanical room. So this will tap into the whole house boiler system, but the liquid running through the tubes is not water, so it will not freeze.
Okay, thank you. Do you know what causes the system to activate? Can you tell us what causes the system to activate?
There's a temperature sensor and a snowfall sensor, and also a manual on and off override.
And do you happen to know what the temperature sensor is set to? I assume it's something above 33 degrees.
Yes, I think the temperature sensing changes depending on the depth of the snowfall. I think that is what affects the temperature. It's not always the same temperature. So
I would assume that it turns on before there's snow. Am I correct?
Yes, the sidewalk has to heat up when snow is anticipated. That's why you usually trigger the snow melts to start warming up the sidewalk ahead of time. Yes.
Is that manual or is that automatic?
I believe that is manual, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to ask our engineer.
Okay. I'm not a fan of snow melt systems. I understand what's being done here, and I think I understand why. If the applicant isn't available, what is the backup for making sure the boiler is on and that the temperature sensor is set and that kind of thing?
There's a full-time caretaker for the townhouse who takes care of all of this anyway. So even if the snow melt system, didn't turn on often enough, the responsibility falls on the homeowner to clear the sidewalk one way or the other. So the caretaker's on hand for any of these, also to pick up trash. And, as you know, the neighborhood's very strict about picking up litter on the sidewalk and not leaving anything in the way.
Thank you very much. Excellent answers.
Thanks, Jordan. Next, Marco, I think was next.
If I could just, before Marco goes, just remind everyone that we did pass in June the snow melt component of this, so we are not voting on that part of it tonight. And that was voted on overwhelmingly by the committee and the board in favor of it.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Marco.
Okay. I will appreciate the clarification. I think it is fair when once we have a position, we cannot go again and to discuss that motion. Regardless, I was opposing that application of the snow melt, but the issue is once the community will take a position, we cannot discuss. That has to be very clear. Let me ask a question on the drawings that you have on the left side on the top. You have the proposed and the existing. You see on the background, you see a pale the back. Yes, that area. Why you do that? It's just this is a matter of curiosity.
Are you asking why the drawing is pale in the back?
Yes.
Oh, because it's in the distance. It differentiates what's in front. What's in front is the fence, and it is 6'4"
No,
feet.
don't worry about that, the distance.
Oh.
I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned is in the way that you represent, I think you did the right thing. I'm nothing wrong because you are not.
Marco, you cut out there. Something happened there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm asking this question is because you did the right thing. Because right here for this committee is no in discussion the rear part of the facade. So therefore, you didn't specify, and that is the way that should be done. And I think I'm okay with this application now. I think you at least you maintain the 8 feet because you have right there down of the street you have the school, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And since you also said that the fence we discussed in landmarks committee, so I don't have no problem with this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marco. Why don't we go next to Rita, then we can come back. I know Michelle had her hand raised, but Rita hasn't spoken yet. Rita, why don't you go ahead?
I think you did a great job. You did everything that we asked you to do, and you've come back. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the new improved plans as presented.
Is there a second? Did someone, can you see Will, is there?
Yeah, Elizabeth Rose gave it a thumbs up. So
Okay, good. Thanks. We can have further, why don't we go to Michelle if you want to say anything further, Michelle.
you also have Alita and Rebecca Dangor who have their hands up.
Sure. We'll go to Rebecca then and then Alita.
Okay.
I didn't realize it, Rebecca. Okay. Well, let me do this. Let's go to Rebecca first. She hasn't spoken yet, then we'll get to me.
I just wanted to tell everyone I sent Will the previous application that was sent to Landmarks and the resolution, and it's in the chat now.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Why don't we go to Michelle then? You had a further comment.
Can you hear me? Something happened with my,
Yeah, we can hear you.
hello?
We can
Yeah, okay. I lost my visual, but all right, I'll work on that
Hear you.
afterwards, but you can hear me. Okay. No, I wanted to say that along with Alita, I did not recall the extension of this fence. Now, what's possible is that since we turned down the application about the extension. I think we probably did it in two parts. So we voted affirmatively for the snow melt.
Right.
And since we voted down the application for the extension, I assume that the fence was in that, you know, in that part of the resolution. And maybe that's why neither she nor I are remembering specifically discussing this fence, because I don't. I think it's too big and it's too bulky. And I don't know if others feel the same way. Aesthetically, to me, it's not as attractive as having the doorways on either side and, you know, and having the smaller fence in the middle. So this is the only thing we're voting on tonight.
Right.
So when you, in the resolution, it's a matter of approving the fence and the planters because there's nothing else up for consideration. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I may just make one comment about that, if you remove 4 feet of planter, you would have less greenery along the front of the townhouse. That is the impact, the negative impact to having 2 parts of fence removed is that the green area is reduced from 12 feet to less than 8 feet.
I understand that, but that's on the interior, right? That's inside, that's in the areaway, and that's what would be visible from the townhouse, but it won't really affect the visibility from the street.
The planter is as high as the sidewalk, and then the plants will be exactly behind the fence itself, so the greenery will be visible from the street.
But this fence design is a little denser than your original. You know, I think you can see through it less. Now I'm recalling because I've lost my visual on my screen for some reason. But at any rate, that's what I'm thinking, that it's a denser fence. The partitions are closer together. I don't know that you would see that much more greenery from the street. And at any event, I think it's a very 13 plus feet of fencing, I think is very bulky there. So that's my only comment. That's all that's under consideration tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Alita, is anyone else will besides Alita?
Jordan,
Oh,
sorry, Jordan and Rita Popper.
okay.
Thank you, Chuck. I wanted first to say that I was a little gnarly earlier, and I really do appreciate your cutting back on your proposed extension and sticking with the space that you already have. It's always noted and appreciated when an applicant does what the community board requests. But so I did want to apologize for my gnarliness and say that I appreciate it. But I'm looking at the resolution, and all it says about the fence is a whereas clause, which is whereas the fence at the front of the house is made of black painted iron. It doesn't address any change in design. It doesn't address any change in length. And I don't know if it was Jane or David who wrote the resolution, but they are very attentive to detail. And had there been changes of the type that you've noted tonight, I suspect, I could be wrong, but I suspect, and Michelle and Marco could agree or disagree, that it would be included in the whereas clause, yet that's all that it says about the fence.
Well, what did you say about the fence, Ms. Pearson? Can you clarify that for us again?
The fence design is exactly as presented at the last community board hearings, both of them, both for the transportation committee, last one, and the one about the front facade.
The landmarks committee too?
Yes.
So
We have not changed the fence design at all since we proposed this new fence. This is the same fence.
Okay, so it was before the landmarks committee, our committee. Of the
Yes.
board when it came. Okay.
This was in April of this year. And the resolution, the discussion of the fence that I think Alita was alluding to was part of the, it was a 2-part vote. It was part A, that was the building where the fence design was discussed, where it was referred to as being made of black painted iron. Part B was the areaway, which spoke nothing of the design and was more in line with what we had voted against ourselves in June, which had to do with the areaway infringing on the existing sidewalk space, the public right of way. There was no discussion of the design of the fence in that piece of it.
And page 5 of that presentation that I posted into the chat is the depiction of the front areaway that they were presenting, and it, to my eye, it matches the other that's currently being presented.
Okay, so we have Jordan who wanted to make another comment, I assume, or is it Philippe Jourdain?
Mais oui, bonjour, monsieur. The question, the good eye, what is the role of aesthetics for the members of the committee in voting on an application? It doesn't seem to affect the movement of people or whatever transportation covers. It doesn't seem to address how much of the sidewalk is or is not covered. What is our role in evaluating aesthetics?
It's not our role, actually. As you said, it's a revocable consent, and we don't normally get into design when it comes to that. And it's been obviously before our landmarks committee.
Because I've heard a member of the board seriously questioning the design, and I don't know how much weight that should carry with me in terms of voting on the application.
Well, I'll let you decide for yourself on that. Rita?
Rita does not have her hand up any longer. Marco and Barry have their hand up.
All right, but Marco has spoken. Barry? How about, I bet Marco can speak if Barry, I don't know what Barry's going to, I may know what Barry's going to say, but go ahead, Barry.
There we go, I'm unmuted. Call the question.
Okay, all right, so the question's been called. All in favor of that, I assume?
If I can just list everyone who I see that is a member that is on right now, and if anyone is missed, please let me know so I can make sure I have the vote tally correct. It's myself, Chuck, Alita, Barry, Brian, Kaz, Elizabeth Rose, Elise, Jack, Jordan, Lori, Marco, Peter, Rebecca Dangor, Michelle, Rita, Lowell, Valerie. Did I miss anyone?
Okay, so why don't we vote all those? We're going to presume that everyone's in favor. Those who want to vote no, abstain, or not voting for cause, you should use the icon, raise your hand, and we'll call on you. See anybody there? Well, I can't,
I do not yet. Anybody?
Going once, going twice? Can we say unanimous?
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone, and good discussion. And thank you, Ms. Pearson. And
Thank you.
as people have said, it's good that the applicant and you had taken our comments very seriously.
Barry now has his hand up. I'm not sure if this is in regards to this or something else.
Barry, do you have your hand up on something, or that's
No.
You just had it before. It's still a carryover. Okay. Item 2 is another revocable consent. Proposed front yard extension at 16 East 94th Street. Do we have someone here for the applicant on that?
I do. And Anik, could you stop sharing your screen, please? Actually, there we go. Alan?
So we have me as the applicant of record, and Marvin Mitzner, who is legal counsel for the owner. Marvin, are you there?
Yes, I see Marvin. You have,
Yeah.
he's got a,
Marvin, you'll have to confirm unmuting. There you go.
Okay, Marvin's going to start out.
all right, okay. Go ahead, Marvin.
Okay, good evening. My name is Marvin Mitzner. I'm the land use counsel for the owner of the building.
Speak up a little, Marvin, speak up a little, your voice, so people can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I am the land use attorney for the owner of the building at 16 East 94th Street. This is an application to approve the extension of a front yard encroaching 3 feet into the sidewalk. Which still leaves 12 feet of unobstructed sidewalk space in front of the building. The front yard extension is part of an overall renovation, restoration, improvement of the building, which was approved by the Landmarks Commission in 2016, and for which we had a building permit December 20th of 2016, and the improvements were constructed. The original building had a short landing between the bottom step and the front door, which needed to be corrected, and also the riser to tread ratio was very unusual. So the owner engaged in a renovation project which included extending the steps into the front of the building to allow for proper access. I would like to have Alan just give a clear presentation on what the proposal is,
Sure.
what the project is. Alan, do you want me to share the?
Yeah, can you share the existing condition first? If not, we can.
DOT 2.
DOT sheet 2, number 2.
I can do that just a moment.
All righty, why don't we share it? We're going to share it, Marvin. There we go. That's not the existing, that's the proposed.
DOT 2.
DOT 2 is the sheet. Would you like us to share it?
Well, I think it's a good idea if we could see what you're trying to do.
We're going to share it, Charles.
It's going to be harder to have the committee consider it if we can't see it.
Totally understand. We're going to share it.
You don't have it open.
Okay, can everybody see?
No, we're not seeing anything here.
Okay, one sec.
I can also pull up their presentation if it's the same one they sent me.
Yeah, why don't you, somebody, okay, there we go.
Okay, so this was the existing condition. The distance from the bottom of the stair to the front of the building was 1 foot 10 inches, leaving an inadequate untenable space for a landing, unsafe space for a landing. That was the first reason for extension. Also, the ground floor lowered by 13 inches. So we needed 2 additional steps. And without an expansion of the areaway, that was also not possible to do. We originally requested of the community board a 6-foot extension, which was declined in the recommendation. There were subsequent discussions with Lowe and me, and we took an advisement, his recommendations. And when we showed up at Landmarks, we proposed, instead of a 6-foot extension, we proposed a 3-foot extension, which was built. So we're going to show that, Eve.
Sure.
Okay, so this is what was built. So we needed 2 extra stairs, and if we had done that, we would have been hitting the front door. And also now we have a 3 foot 8 inch landing, which is more appropriate to have a landing at the bottom of the stairs. And that was the request to Landmarks and to DOB. And I also did have a couple discussions with Lowe. And this was what was approved and built 4 years ago, I have to say. So there you have it.
So what are you doing now? Anything?
No, construction is complete.
And so it's already done, and what you're looking, this is an approval of, you never got a revocable consent from DOT before?
Yeah, well, Jimmy, are you there? Jimmy Gandhi, our expediter. He was on the line before. For whatever reason, he at DOB and landmarks, they said it was not necessary to go back, but obviously it was, and therefore my team screwed up. Jimmy, can you explain what happened when you spoke to the DOB?
Yeah, unmute me.
Yeah, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes. So in 2016, we filed the application at the DOB to do renovation work. We got the landmarks approval for the enlarged yard, and we submitted to DOB. At that point, the plan examiner did not ask for DOT revocable consent. So we didn't realize we needed one, and he didn't ask for one, and he approved the job. Subsequently, the plan examiner left the DOB, and in 2018, the application was assigned to a new plan examiner. The new examiner then, we were filing an amendment for interior stuff, but the new examiner decided to review everything from scratch, and she found that we needed DOT revocable consent. So the new plan examiner is saying we need to go back and obtain that to be in compliance. We did get the landmark approval for the enlarged area, and we got DOB approval, but somewhere along the way, we didn't catch it, and the DOB didn't catch that there needed to be a DOT revocable consent.
So what you're trying to do is essentially legalize the 3-foot extension past the property line into the sidewalk area.
Yes.
Okay. So want to understand what this application is about. And okay. Anything further, Mr. Berman?
We can show the elevation.
I think that's it. Charles, do you want to see an elevation or a section? Here's the section. So we had to add at least 2 more stairs because the ground floor, we had to add 2 more steps because the ground floor lowered by 13 inches. So with the existing condition with a 1'10", the stairs would have pretty much hit the front door. So between hitting the front door with the lowered elevation and between having a tenable landing, it's sort of like, this is how the direction we had to go to make it accessible, not a dangerous situation, and so that the new stairs did not hit the front door and have no landing.
Okay. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Right, I understand.
Okay.
I think we do. Well, why don't we see if there's any members of the public that have any comments on this application? Will, can you see any members of the public that have indicated by that? Can use the hand raise symbol?
Yeah, Lo Vandervalk.
Hey, Lo.
Hey, Lo, why don't you unmute Lo?
Lo, just at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a button to confirm unmuting.
Yeah, okay. Am I on?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we're actually very pleased with this application. I think Alan did a great job. You know, you're not seeing the facade, and that's not what's before you, but they renovated the facade. And I know when this came before the Landmarks Commission, they originally wanted to come out 6 feet, and we indicated that even though that wouldn't be as far as the neighbor to the east, it would be much further for the neighbor to the west. And so the compromise that was reached was a 3-foot extension, which we could live with and which we saw the need for. It's really the minimum need, the minimum to satisfy their need to have a safe landing space and reasonably sized steps. So we also think, so we're very happy with this application. We also think that the fence, the railing is nicely done. It is embellished slightly with these round bulbs that are very modest in size. And, you know, when I looked at the earlier application this evening, you see those little round bulbs along the, yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. That's the most modest embellishment, and it's wonderful for our neighborhood. And when you saw the last application, it was just a flat top And these townhouses deserve more. So I think this is a wonderful restrained addition and extension, and we wholeheartedly approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Lo. Will, are there any other members of the public on this?
No other members of the public. You have Elizabeth Rose, Michelle, Jordan Woke, and Valerie Mason.
Okay, how about Elizabeth Rose? Why don't you unmute Elizabeth?
Elizabeth?
Yep. So if I get this correct, the homeowner wanted to increase their interior space by dropping the floor a little over a foot.
Yes.
So this desire of the homeowner then necessitates a longer staircase down, which necessitates an expansion into the public way.
Yes, but even if we didn't drop the sidewalk, Elizabeth, we still had the foot 10. Even if we left the floor where it was, we had virtually no landing. It was very unsafe. So whether we lowered the floor or not, the existing condition was very dangerous.
And so now, because our city agencies are not working together well, this work was completed without one necessary set of approvals. And it sounds like, I don't know, Will, if we have any history of what of this came to the community board at the time in 2016.
I don't have the presentation, but I do have the resolution. It's posted in the chat.
It came before the landmarks committee.
Yes, yes, sorry.
But it did not come before transportation.
Correct.
Okay, so that's also then an our bad as a community board, because if we see if Landmark sees something like this, and I guess this is a question for Alita, how do we as a community board work better so that if we see something is encroaching, Landmark sees a presentation and it clearly has a proposal to encroach on the public way, why aren't we automatically flagging that this had better come before transportation as well? That's something that we need to correct in our processes. I mean, but I guess my question to the attorneys in this case is, at this point, what is our recourse? You know, this building was built without appropriate approvals. What is our recourse here?
Well, let me say a couple things on that, just from my perspective, Elizabeth. It's very hard to have members of the community board and even the staff. You know, we react to applications when they come from agencies. We'd be asking the members of the landmarks committee to somehow say, well, have they gotten the revocable consent, when that's not something that the landmarks committee folks are very cognizant of, I'm sure. And just like we ask, so if we know it's in a landmark area, we might say, have you gone to the landmarks committee, or we haven't found a resolution. So I think it's a tricky thing, and it's difficult to ask board members to do that. So I'm not sure what.
I have incredibly high regard for the intelligence of our board members, and every meeting I've ever attended, board members have made connections to things in other areas.
Well,
so I respectfully disagree. We should be we should at least have the capacity to flag these things and make sure this gets calendared, or mention it when an application is coming before one committee, that we know, say, and have you also gotten on the agenda for the other committee.
Okay.
So I will respectfully disagree on that. But let's go back to the bigger question.
Right.
Yes.
What is the recourse here?
Here's what we can do, which we can either approve it to essentially pass it on to the Department of Transportation, who would then grant it and legalize it, or we can say, we never saw this, we should have seen this. There's blame that goes to the applicant as well as to the government, and because it's applicants should know what kind of approvals that they do need, and we could disapprove it and on that basis. And then it's up to the Department of Transportation to either agree with us or not, you know, and so those are our options. You asked what we can do.
Yep.
As a that's what we can do. I don't know in the end if it'll practically what it'll mean, but that's what we can do.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. From my perspective, I would not let the opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute, this did not follow appropriate process and procedure, and, you know, disapprove it. I would not let that opportunity go by. Otherwise, there is absolutely no impact.
Okay. Who was next, Will? Sorry, we got off on a colloquy.
It's okay. So you have Michelle, Jordan, Valerie, Marco, and Alita, and I believe Alita wanted to respond to some of the.
Why don't I call Alita first in this? Yes, because Elizabeth raised a question for about the whole board, so let our esteemed board chair chime in here.
Thank you, Chuck. Elizabeth, this has never come up where an applicant with an architect did not know that they needed to get consent. The issue of extending into the sidewalk has come up numerous times at landmarks, as well as issues that involve the BSA, such as when they're seeking some kind of zoning variance, as well as landmarks. They always know to do it. So I understand your point. It has never come up. I'm really stunned that an applicant with an architect would have missed this, that they needed to do this. And so I'll raise my hand again, but I'm with you on taking this opportunity, because this is not the case where a homeowner got up on a Sunday and decided to paint their facade of a landmarked house or in a historic district and didn't realize it. This is moving something into the public way. And the Landmarks Committee did disapprove the original iteration where they intended to go out 6 feet. So 6 feet is a large amount of space that they didn't know is really surprising to me. But I understand your point. This has just never arisen before where a professional didn't realize what was required in the city. So thank you. And I'll bring that back to the Landmarks Committee when we next meet. And I'll raise my hand again for a substantive comment so I don't cut off anyone. Thank you, Chuck, and thanks, Will.
Sure. Okay, I think Michelle was next. Michelle, why don't we unmute yourself there?
Yeah. If this was done about 4 years ago and there's an unsafe landing there because 2 extra steps were needed, how has the family been gaining access all this time?
They purchased the property and they didn't move in yet. They just moved in recently.
So they purchased the property and it's been an unsafe entrance since they've purchased? This is the first time they're seeking remedy?
No, we sought remedy when we first made our applications to the DOB and landmarks.
When was that?
4 years ago.
That's my point. So for 4 years, if they weren't living there, somebody else was living there, correct?
No one's been living there. It's been under construction for 4 years.
For 4 years?
Well, a year to get the permits and then probably 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. No one lived there. It was vacant.
Oh, just really speaks to the efficiency of the entire project.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear all this.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of on the fence about this. I too am disturbed that this wasn't caught initially. I'm still not quite sure at what point the 2 extra steps became needed. They were needed 4 years ago when that family moved out. When did they become a necessity?
Well, I don't know what the previous family felt about the steps. I haven't had a conversation with the previous family.
But somebody was living with this scenario, correct? Somebody was living with it. If not the current owner, then the previous owner.
Right. So should we get them involved in this conversation today?
No. I'm just asking. What I'm saying is somebody in the process thought that these 3 steps were enough and they were living with it.
So it was built 100 years ago, and I guess no one complained. So when this family bought the project, They said we have a 1'10" landing. It's untenable. And let's try to make an application to expand the areaway. I know if I bought the house, and I would assume if you bought the house, I wouldn't feel safe with a 1'10" landing.
So you're saying that this original 1'10" landing was original to the 100-year-old building?
I don't know. It was renovated in the 20s by a Spanish embassy who did a total gut job. So it's been there probably since the 20s, 1926, I think.
Okay, so many we won't go back, but many families have been living with this 1.10 landing. Has there been any determination if there's any way to make it wider without expanding into the public way? Is there a way of doubling a step, of making a platform, of doing anything? Has that been explored? We're not here to design, so I'm not asking you to do that now, but I'm just saying, has that all been explored?
Yes,
And
yes.
And nothing is, no architect could figure out a way without this 3 feet expansion.
Yes, every architect that, well, myself and 6 staff members, 3 who are licensed, look for other ways. And to do what you're suggesting would be a side landing and steps going down on the right angle instead of directly. And even to do the side landing, we would have had to come out 3 feet to do a 5-foot landing, turn the stairs sideways, and leave a 3-foot areaway to double back to the front door. So,
and what about inside the house? What about moving the front door back?
Hey, Michelle, can we not get into the whole history in this where it's done? I don't think
Well, I'm only trying to decide whether or not there was an alternative that had been explored. I don't want to vote on something that is impossible to achieve. So I'm weighing my vote based on whether or not there's a solution to this. So I'm asking if solutions like that have been explored. That's all.
Yes, Michelle, absolutely. Respectfully, we explored every solution, and every solution would mean turning the stairs on the side, leaving a 3-foot to 40-inch egress in front of the front door, and create a landing from the street. And even to create the landing and the stairs, we would have had to come out 3 foot, no matter what we did. And
how about going into the house?
Well, again, the clients weren't concerned about going in the house. They didn't want to step onto a 1'10" landing. I would assume anybody reasonable buying a house for $8 million
All right. Okay.
would not want to.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. I'm saying if the front door were pushed back, you'd have, without coming 3 feet into the public way, you would have space going into the house for putting the extra 2 steps. I'm only asking if that was explored. That's all. Yes.
Yeah, we explored many
no,
scenarios, and I apologize. I lost you. I can't hear you in the sound. We were told by DOB that we did not have to go back to community board. So that was, I kept asking. We have many extraneous emails requesting and asking, and we were told by DOB originally that we did not have to go back. So if everyone wants to blame me, I will take full responsibility. But there was no other way to create a safe landing, regardless of which direction the stair was, or if we turned it and did a landing. There was no way to make it safe without pulling out at least 3 feet. And I'm sorry that I was told otherwise by the DOB. And yes, it is built. We've gotten so many compliments from people like Lowe and the neighbors, how this building was an albatross on the street. And we worked very hard with Landmarks to improve the quality of the street, the areaway. The building is gorgeous now. We continue to get compliments from so many people in the neighborhood to what an improvement that we made. And from now, the safety that we now have a 3'10" landing, whereas we had a 1'10" landing, regardless if we lowered the floor or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Will, who's next?
You have Jordan, Valerie, Marco, Alita,
okay,
and
Jordan,
more.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Rose, you really asked the questions that I wanted to ask very well. If we were absolutely back at the beginning, I'd say, why are they lowering the floor, the first floor, 13 inches? That seems to be a critical factor as to where the landing has to be. So I don't know how to vote. It's not, it's one of the more peculiar things, but I say, Elizabeth Rose, thank you so much for helping to clarify it.
Okay. Next, Will, I'm losing train here. Who's next after Jordan?
Valerie.
Hi, I just want to follow up. Obviously, it's too late for us to do anything in this particular instance. I hear, I think it's Alan Berman saying that he has correspondence from the DOB, basically telling him that he didn't need to come back to us. I really think that we need to vote to disapprove this, even though it's already been built. And then we need to send a letter to the DOB with copies of this correspondence, alerting them to the fact that they are approving things that they should not be approving without our approval. And we should be very strong in this. And I don't want to take up any more time, but this can happen again. And once this is of record, which now everyone's going to know about it, they're going to try to do it again. Not this particular architect. I'm not imputing any kind of, malicious intent, but it's obvious that the DOB really isn't on the mark. And I think we have to go on record that this was not approved by us, and that we should, if we can find out who approved it and put it on record that, this is not, they need to be more proactive in making sure that we get these approvals, because I don't think, even though it makes the block more beautiful, we have, many times you look at these sidewalks and they're shrinking and shrinking, and that is not what we want. So I'm done.
Okay. Was it Marco next, Will? Marco?
Oh, thank you. I agree. The procedure is no fine at all, and I think it's wrong. However, the 3 feet that they are asking, I think is reasonable. I had to make a couple of comments. First of all, DOV never said don't go to the community board. That is wrong. That is not true. I deal constantly with DOV, never said that. Secondly, DOV have a system in the applications for many years that immediately trigger when it's a landmark building. They put it to any plan examiner that is a plan that this project must go to landmarks. So I don't buy the explanation of the expediter. I think it's wrong. It's better to tell us the truth. The truth is, yes, you did a very good job. Yes, you need a little bit more space in order to organize better your space. If that is the truth, yes, I will support the application. But when you are coming with different history or different scenarios, that I think made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And by the way, you are not the only one. It happened right now in Landmarks the other day. There is another application that is exactly the same, that almost after they finished the job, they came to us. So regrettably, that become a pattern, not only in this committee, but also in Landmarks. The issue of that raised Jordan in the application before this one, he's right. When they said, what we're talking about, static stories or transportation. So therefore, all the applications, they should be deal with its design and history, should deal with landmarks. And that's in the way that should be handled this application. So there, in this case, it should be first go back to landmarks. Landmark has to have a position and then come back to transportation. Because otherwise we're encroaching and we're confusing, especially those members of transportation that probably they have not much skills in the history of landmarks. So my bottom line right here is, I don't have a problem to allow this 3 feet of extension because I'm a professional too, and to go and demolish, I don't think is fair. And what they asking, I think is something reasonable. do not encroach more than the existing adjacent property that already encroach the sidewalk. So probably my sense is more with the direction to recommend the approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I chime in, or should I wait till the end? I'm the expediter.
You can.
Okay, I just want to clarify that we did get the enlarged front yard approved by landmarks, and we went to a landmarks committee for the community board for the enlarged front yard, and we got the landmarks permits, and the DOB approved it with the landmark permit. We just didn't get the DOT revocable consent, and that was a big oversight on my part, on the applicant's part, and on the plan examiner's part. And now the DOB, they found out that they approved the DOT revocable consent, and they informed us late last year about that. So we didn't know the DOT, it fell, landmarks missed it, DOB missed it, we missed it. I apologize as the expediter for the project, but we did get the community board hearing for the landmarks, and we got the landmarks approval. And sometimes when people ask, did you go before the community board for the enlarged front yard? I would say yes. Now, I didn't realize that we have to go to the transportation subcommittee, and that is also my fault, and I apologize. But I thought by getting the landmarks approval and the community board's approval on the landmarks side of things, we had all the approvals we needed. And I do apologize for that oversight.
Okay. Alita, I think, was Alita next, Will?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, why don't you unmute Alita?
Thank you. First, I have to say that one of my closest friends from law school actually lived in that building a long time ago. I think on either the second or third floor. I knew the address and it looked familiar. So I know that, or at least her studio apartment in there. Anyway, also Chuck, do we need a vote to see if a letter in the type that Valerie suggested should be sent by the board on this issue?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I support what Valerie said. I'm really troubled by forgetfulness on the part of applicants that they don't know or don't realize that they need to come before the community board, or they need to go before the board before going to city agencies. So I just can't support this on principle. That I know it was built and it looks like it's a lovely job, but I see a second doorway to the right, and it's hard to imagine that with some creativity, an architect could not have figured out how to do this. And yes, it would have obviously caused some expense, but this is just not, it's just not right because it's an encroachment. And also I think, what was I going to say? I'm troubled by the fact that it was not recognized by anybody. And the landmarks committee, because I looked at the resolution, disapproved the original extension into the sidewalk. It was the previously desired 6 feet. So that was the only time, at least the resolution that I saw from 2016, that went before landmarks, and that specific item was disapproved. Okay. Unless I read it wrong. So thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Next is Felice Arbor. Felice, can unmute Felice.
She's unmuted.
Okay.
I just wanted to, I really had just two questions. One, since this is already built, I wanted to understand what the consequences are of voting no on the revocable consent. And then my second question is, how do we make sure that this sort of issue doesn't happen again, to the point that Alita and others have raised?
I think, Felice, that to answer your second question first, I think Alita alluded to it. If there's more of a focus in landmarks when there's an extension like this, because landmarks did actually vote. It was 6 feet, not 3 feet. They did vote against it. So they knew that there was an extension. The question will have to be to applicants, are you aware you need a revocable consent? That's going to have to be one of the things probably written in at landmarks. And I think that probably can be dealt with. I think after Alita's discussion, I think I agree that it is probably something we can help keep from happening again, because I don't remember ever dealing with a situation like this, frankly, in our committee, where someone's come to legalize things. They've come to legalize a lot of other things before the board, but this is one I don't remember. I don't know, maybe Barry might remember, but from going back to transportation a long time ago, but I certainly don't remember. And the other thing is, you said, what are the consequences? I mean, it seems to me that I only know of one circumstance where, and it had to do with zoning, and Marvin probably remembers the famous 96th Street 12 stories, where an architect made a mistake in reading the zoning map, and the Park Improvement District covered the building when he didn't think it did, and they had to remove 12 stories from the building. And so I don't believe that the Department of we could recommend against it, but then the Department of Transportation has to make the decision. I think it's highly unlikely that the Department of Transportation would say, we're not going to give you a revocable consent, because then it would be illegal. And theoretically, if it's illegal, the buildings department might say to them, okay, you've got to remove this. That would be the most extreme thing. And I don't know too many other cases. Marvin has been around a long time. He may know some other cases where someone has done something that you,
if I may,
pay money and legalize it or whatever. But that was the only case I can think of, because I was somewhat involved in that case. Marvin, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
yes, I do recall that. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm having I apologize, I'm having a lot of connection problems. So I hear just about every third or every other word. But to Chuck's point, I do recall that. But let me just say this. We've come to you honestly conveying what happened here and the mistakes that were made. And they were made certainly by the architect, certainly by the expediter, certainly the DOB and the Landmarks Committee and a whole bunch of other people. But that should not prejudice the owner, who was an innocent in this, and that should not speak to the merits of what we're proposing. So I think it behooves the board to look at what our application is and whether it's an appropriate application for use of the revocable consent or not, and vote on that basis. We all acknowledge a mistake, but why would you penalize an owner who knew nothing about this, who doesn't have the knowledge to say otherwise, and prejudice him? I don't understand that. If you want to make a point, you can certainly make a point in your resolution how happy you are about the circumstances. And you can certainly make a point to the agencies about how unhappy you are about the circumstances. But to then take it out on this innocent owner, I don't think is appropriate and fair. And I would ask the board members to consider that and look at the application itself, not how it got to you.
Thank you, Marvin. Okay. Why don't we go next to Jordan Woke? Your hand up. Can we unmute Jordan?
Jordan, you could there you go.
Hi. If I understood the speaker before, I should be looking at this application ex nihilo as if this doesn't exist, in which case I would probably be arguing against the extension. I believe that a representative of the applicant said that there exist emails from the DOB saying affirmatively that the applicant did not need to get the revocable consent. That certainly would be an interesting item to have available prior to the full board meeting. And I see the representative nodding his head up and down.
Yeah, Jimmy, do we have the actual email, or was it a conversation? Jimmy?
Okay, hi. No, we don't have those emails, but typically what I have is at the beginning of the project, the examiner issues all the things you need for approval, the objection sheet, and the DOT revocable consent was not there. But there are no emails, there isn't an email that affirmatively says you don't need a DOT revocable consent.
Okay.
Yeah, he did note the enlarged front yard, but I think the examiner and me, we wrongly assumed that the landmarks approval for enlarged front yard is enough. and it's not, and that's on me also, and I apologize again. But we do have, I can provide you the original objection sheet where the DOT revocable consent was not required. There was no, they issue objections, provide a landmark permit, provide a, so-and-so permit, but they did not issue an objection to provide a revocable consent.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Why don't we go to Elizabeth Rose? She had her hand up again. Elizabeth?
Thank you. So in looking through the presentation, and I've been looking through the whole presentation on the community board website, all of the documents are dated January of 2020, and are presenting it as if this were, nothing had happened yet, from what I can tell. Is the photographs on the DOT-1 sheet, are those the original condition prior to the expansion of the sidewalk?
Yes, this is
Yes,
the original
that was the,
condition.
that was the original.
Okay.
I think the new documents with the year 2020 in it was part of an overall post-approval amendment, but that wasn't addressing this specifically. And that just reappeared from the original approval, which was in 2016. Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong.
Look, I haven't done this a lot. It feels like the documents are almost trying to go back and remake this right, rather than acknowledge that this is what happened. And so while I appreciate the comments about the homeowner rather than the professionals whom the homeowner hired, even the way it's being presented now, and I gotta believe that there are different ways of presenting it, makes it feel like there is, that there isn't acknowledgement of error.
So I could address that. We made this application with the advice of Ed Schnau, who's in DOT in charge of revocable consents. He said in a legalization, you have to do it as if you're doing it from the beginning, and you have to follow a certain format. That's why it's made like this, because you have to show what was existing and what was proposed. What was proposed is already built, but you still have to show what was there before and what is there now. And you have to retrace everything as if you were doing it before you built it. That's just how they wanted us to present it from the DOT.
Right, but the 2020 documents were not trying to fix an areaway issue. The 2020 documents were dealing with other post-approval amendments about the building. And we just reiterated the 2016 issue. It was not trying to make a correction or lie or subterfuge or correct a mistake. We were still under the belief that we did everything right. So there was no subterfuge or trying to correct something about the areaway. It was just a regurgitation based on other things that needed to be updated in the 2020 documents.
Okay, thank you. Alita Camp.
Thanks again, Chuck. I just want to say that there is an interest from many members of the board to look at the idea of revocable consents under circumstances where a homeowner decides they'd like to encroach upon the sidewalk. And there has been a lot of recent objections to those revocable consents, which complicates this a little bit because you're asking for something that no one is sure the board would have approved to begin with. And the fact that you're asking for it retroactively because there was a mistake, even being cognizant of the innocence of the homeowner, is it's a very difficult situation. And I just wanted to throw that in the mix, that a lot of board members are not happy with this kind of application. Thank you, Chuck.
Sure. Marco Tamayo. Can we unmute Marco?
Marco, you just have to confirm.
Okay, thank you. We have to clarify something. Many members doesn't understand what is the process right here. First, landmarks. When it's landmarks, it has to go directly to landmarks, and DOB say you gotta go to landmarks. But DOB, the the authority is from the lot line to inside of the lot. And DOB said the lot line outside is DOT. So this application will be assessed by DOT because you didn't touch anything inside. So my experience in the way that I've seen before, DOT usually they approve all revocable consents, even that regardless if we have against of any application. So in that direction, the only thing that bothered me so much is they are claiming that there is in the objection sheet from DOB, there is nothing that tells that this applicant has to go to landmarks. I think if they disappear that paper, which basically I always have this paper in my all applications, so I'm able to produce at any time, and that bothered me a lot if they are hiding that part. So, but in any event, my point is, this is an issue of DOT, and it's not an issue of DOB because it's outside of the lot line, and DOT is more likely is going to approve. Now, seeing in the way that law described, I think they did a very good job. I'm not supporting the illegal actions, but I want to give some relief to the applicant and say yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Valerie? Valerie Mason?
I just want to call the question.
Okay.
Sorry, Barry.
Called. Is there a second there? Yeah.
What is the motion on the floor?
Oh, there is no motion on the floor. You're right.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay, the motion is to disapprove. Well, let's put it in the affirmative and people can vote the way they want. The motion is to approve this application as amended.
Oh, to approve it? Okay. Is there a second there?
Getting a reaction or thumbs up from anyone? I got one from Brian.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. So can we go to a vote now at this point? Why don't we do that?
Yeah, I'm going to clear everybody's hands that are up and
yeah, everybody should take their hands away and they're here. I can now we're going to assume that you have voted in the affirmative. This is a motion to approve unless your hand is raised where you, and then that you want to vote no, abstain, or not voting for cause. So let's see. Okay. So let me call on it first. Peter, I see Peter Borak. Peter?
Peter, you need to unmute. There you go.
Just to be clear, this question has not been called, and I would actually offer a substitute motion. And I would offer a motion to take no action. I think Valerie's point is well taken.
Peter, it's been called. The question's been called. It's called. So you either vote or not. It's up to you.
I mean, the question wasn't called because Valerie, there wasn't a standing motion. Valerie called the question. But there actually hasn't been a call. And so I would offer a substitute motion, which is that the committee take no action. I think it's inappropriate what happened here. And I think to ask us to go back in time to put our imprimatur on this for something that, as Alita rightly pointed out, a lot of members of this committee are now against. I think it just doesn't really pass the smell test. And even if we vote yes, I don't really know what that does. So I would offer that the board actually votes to take no action on this based on the procedural circumstances.
We've called the question on the motion to approve, Peter. So the motion's not, your motion's not in order. So let's so you do want to vote or you don't want to vote?
I'll vote present.
Okay. Well, you can't vote present. That's not one of, you can abstain, you can vote yes, no, abstention, etc.
Nope, you're muted again, Peter.
Right.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Elizabeth, Rose, unmute yourself.
I vote no. Unclear whether we would have approved this had it come in the appropriate fashion.
All right, Valerie Mason, unmute.
You are.
I'm voting no too, but at the main meeting, I wouldn't be against the substitute motion.
Okay. well, can we just vote and not
No,
have,
I'm voting no. I'm voting no.
I understand. I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to the future people if we can just keep the commentary down. Brian Correa?
Michelle first needs to unmute.
Michelle, I'm sorry, I missed, yeah.
Yeah, I'm voting, I'm actually going to abstain, but
Okay.
I want to be
Thank you.
sure, but wait a minute, but I want to be sure that all of the whereases reflect this conversation. Because I'm not happy with a no effect, you know, like if we have a tie or something, because then the DOB is just going to do what they want. So
Yep.
somehow, and which would be the same if we took no position. So
Gotcha, I got it. We understand. Brian Correa?
I'm a no.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Rebecca Dangor?
You missed Jordan.
Sorry, I missed Jordan. Sorry,
Okay.
Jordan.
No. Jordan votes no.
Sorry, Rebecca Dangor.
No.
Okay. Alita? Rebecca Lamort, sorry, first.
Abstain. Thank you.
Okay. And then Alita Camp.
Thank you. I vote no, and I want to see the paperwork that they're talking about produced to the board. Yes, Will?
Lowell, I got you. I'm going to come to you next. Don't worry. Lowell is being very demonstrative, and I didn't want him to freak out. Sorry, Alita.
That's okay. I'd like to just ask for the paperwork before the full board meeting, so that we could determine whether, I'm sorry for my ringing phone, so that we could determine whether what they're saying is really accurate, and there are the communications from the DOB that they've said have happened.
No, well, okay, we'll talk to that. Let's see
you.
the votes here. Felice Farber? Felice, can you unmute?
Yes.
I abstain.
Abstain. Okay.
And Jack, and then Lowell will come back to you.
Oh, I see Jack, right, okay, Jack.
You're unmuted, Jack.
Abstain.
Jack's abstaining, okay.
And then Lowell he was waving. Lowell, you just need to confirm.
I guess I don't see Lowell here. Maybe I just.
No.
Okay, sorry, Lowell. Anyone else?
No, that is everybody. Is Craig writing all this down and has a count?
Yes, I am. And there were more no's than there were abstentions than there would be yeses.
So it
fails.
Okay. All right. So that fails. So the motion to approve fails. So at this point, why don't we'll just have a resolution that says we disapproved, we failed to approve the motion to approve it.
Is there, you have Alita with her hand up and Rebecca Dangor with her hand up about
Okay.
this.
Yeah, Alita, I see. Go ahead, Alita.
Alita, you just have to confirm.
Okay, thank you. We need to do a motion to disapprove in order to have any impact. Failure of a motion to approve to pass is the board taking no effect. So in order, again, to have impact, we'd have to have a disapproval. Thank you.
Well, if someone wants to move that, we can move it. Rebecca Dangor?
I make a motion to disapprove the application.
Is there a second?
I see Elizabeth Rose.
Okay, so, all right. Is there any further discussion on this? Are we ready to vote on that? Well, Rita Popper, I think, you want to say something, Rita?
Rita, just confirm.
Rita?
Confirm that you want to be on mute.
Yeah.
I just am voting.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. So why don't we vote? So everyone will be assumed to vote yes unless you raise your hand. Okay.
Okay. So Rita, you're first up.
Go ahead, Rita.
Rita, you just muted yourself.
Yes,
Okay. Costs?
So wait, the motion is to disapprove and
Yes,
Costs?
disapprove.
No, wait, yes, we're presumed to vote yes. Only raise your hand if you don't want to vote yes.
a yes is a disapproval. A no is an approval. Right, Chuck?
Yes, correct. So Rita, are you voting to disapprove or yes?
Rita, you just muted yourself again.
Say again.
Are you voting? It's a motion to disapprove. Are you in favor?
Disapprove.
What?
No.
No on that, right?
No.
Okay, that's no. Costs?
Yeah, I vote no. I think we're beating a dead horse. This has been going on for too long. We've been on this for an hour. Let's get it over with.
Thank you. Thank you, Costs. Don't beat any further horses yourself.
I won't.
Jack Zimmerman?
Check.
Jack, unmute.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Peter Borak?
Abstain.
Barry Schneider?
No.
Marco Tamayo?
No.
And Craig later?
I'm a no.
And I'm also a no too, Craig. So
Got it.
so you probably, I don't know, you have the tally. I don't know what happened to that one.
So as of now, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see 8 no's, and I see a total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 members currently present, or at least I think they're currently present. So that would mean that the motion would pass.
Okay, so we have 28 or so people here.
We have 20, and I'm getting 12 people who have not raised their hand, which would mean yes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no's and 2 abstentions.
Okay, so it's 8 in effect on that. Okay, so that does pass. Okay. Okay. We'll pass on that resolution to the DOT. Our next item, number 3, is a request to change the parking regulations on East 72nd Street, east of York Avenue. And Craig, is there somebody who is sponsoring this, who is someone here to speak about this, or is this something, I know we put it on the agenda because someone wrote in about it, but is that person here?
If they are here, would they raise their hand through the participants menu? It's *9 if you're on the phone.
Craig, why don't you go ahead on this, because we did put this on because of a request that we got.
Sure. I'm just trying to go back to see who provided this initially. It was from residents.
I have the photos up if you would like me to.
Yeah, you have the photos. Great.
I do.
So East 72nd Street between York and the East River is a cul-de-sac, and we have received complaints from constituents, and as Will said, he is going to put some of the photos up of vehicles being parked illegally within the cul-de-sac area, to the extent that vehicles are unable to turn around safely, and especially emergency vehicles. This is in some ways similar to what we discussed a few months ago on Cherokee Place, except here the vehicles have to make the U-turn. It's a no standing zone, and cars are parked in the no standing zone, creating this challenging environment. And the question was whether we would consider changing the parking regulations along the street. The challenge is that, at least from my perspective, looking at how we can achieve an outcome that would improve safety and allow for vehicles to not, to be able to make the turnaround. I'm not sure what the best solution is. Of course, currently, I have to go back and actually see what the parking regulations are, but in the cul-de-sac itself, up until a certain point, it's no standing. And on the other side, let me just go back and check. I'm sorry, I should have had this in front of me. But we would have, where I thought there was a question as to whether it should be alternate side or something else. So it was more of a discussion if we had the parties who were making the complaints, it would be helpful for us to be able to get their insight into this as well. But without that, I think we're left to try to come up with our own solutions.
Well, you know what? Why don't we put this off and we'll take it up next month and see if we can get them to come in, because normally when we have a situation and people ask us to do something, if they don't show up, we normally put it over, give them a chance to show up. And since we don't have it, and since there are issues and we need to look at it more closely, why don't we just put this off and we'll reschedule. Don't you think that makes sense here?
I think that makes sense. It's not one of those clear-cut situations where we know what the preferred outcome would be that would address and rectify the situation.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we go? Then item number 4 on our agenda was a discussion. We asked to put this on the agenda because some of the board members had talked about this and it had come up in other contexts about parking and things like that. And this is the prevalence of illegal and counterfeit placards and the impacts on safety resulting from placard packing and parking in those standing zones and stuff. And that came up from some of the issues that we had.
Yeah, Chuck, before we go there, apparently Valerie was waving on the last thing, so I just want to make sure that she has a chance to.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you want to talk about the last thing, Valerie? Go ahead.
Just for a second, I think it's great to put it over. Craig, can you tell me, I think Gordon Musell might have been one of the signatories to that letter, or somebody else from our neighborhood association. What I just want to, if you can go by, people go by, the issue is that cul-de-sac is being used as a way station for Ubers and Lyfts. And there's a lot of medical offices on that building, and it's almost impossible for residents to even just pull up in front because it's obviously not a through street, and people are just using it to hang out as a depot, etc. And so the block is trying to get some control over what's happening in that circle, because it's just making it's mind-boggling, and they cannot, they cannot people can't pick up in front of these doctors' offices, and residents can't even pick up in front of their buildings because it's being used, and nobody is coming down there to enforce the regulations. Because the drivers are sitting in their cars, idling, etc., and they just move one block over. So that's really the issue over there. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Valerie. We'll take it up and hopefully we can make some progress on it next month. The placards issue, as everybody knows, has been a difficult one. And during the Bloomberg administration, they really tried to reduce the number of placards and who could issue placards, and they did do that, and it did actually help some. But I think things have sort of slipped back over the last 8 years, and we do have many placards. And I guess the question is, what can we do about it? And it seems to me that there ought to be a situation where the city really gets control over who can issue these placards and how many placards there are, and try to reduce them dramatically. And that may be something that we want to put in a resolution that will go to the mayor's office and a number of the other agencies, But it's really the mayor's office that has to get control over this because placards are issued by any number of different agencies. But I'll throw open the floor to people who want to discuss this. I don't know if there are any members of the public that want to talk about this issue.
Just a reminder, it's *9 to raise your hand if you're on the phone, or to use the participants menu if you're a member of the public and would like to speak about this issue.
Is there anybody?
And let me just, while we wait for anyone to possibly raise their hand, just mention that in March of 2019, we did pass a resolution related to parking placard reform. The resolution itself was geared towards a package of city council legislation that I don't recall whether they were passed. I seem to recall that the city came up with their own policy and sort of bypassed the city council, but we supported a lot of the actions that I think we probably still want to support if we were continuing to have that stance. That may not be part of proposed legislation at this point, but maybe policies that we wish to see implemented.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. I think that's good. Lori, I see board members. I see Lori Boris has her hand raised. Lori, why don't you?
You do have one member of the public, Julianne Britannia.
Oh, sorry, Julianne Britannia. Right. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm speaking specifically about East 62nd Street and East 61st Street, but we know that this is all around the city. And just to sort of support your effort in whatever way we can to reach the mayor's office, we have historically documented probably for 3 years on and off when we had council member Gorodnick in place and also Keith Powers. And we've met numerous times with Department of Transportation. To your point, really there's two issues here. One is the issuance of these placards, and then the enforcement of them, because as many of the are not only personally photocopied illegal placards, but they're also expired placards where they could be 2 years old and they're not getting ticketed. And when we did meet with Department of Transportation, I don't know if anyone has any more updated information of this. I'm sure given many of the resources that are being cut across the city, one of the ideas was that there was something coming down in the future that would actually allow ticket officers to be able to use a handheld device like you scan in the grocery store onto a placard with a barcode that would then determine if it was valid, expired, illegal on their system. But I'm sure that's very far down the path at this point. And I think the real issue is, as an immediate concern, how does it actually get enforced? As well as how do we limit these placards that are being issued? To add to your letter, I would love to put a footnote in there that, MD plates are very honorable, but house calls have been a thing of the past for a long time. And these MD plates, as far as I've historically heard, are things that were put in place so that doctors could do house calls. Yet, on our block on 62nd Street and 19th Precinct can give you 20 blocks where there are vehicles with MD plates that will sit for weeks and months on end without receiving tickets, and that ticketing officers will not ticket them because they're MD plates. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. The odd thing about that is that, at least what I've been told, is that it's from the Department of Education, that if you are a doctor and you get a license to be a doctor, then you now have the ability to have this license plate, and it never really gets revoked, or there's no reissuance. If your medical license was revoked or you've retired, you still have this plate and you still can park wherever you are. And I think that's added to the illegal copying of plates, as well as lack of ticketing of expired placards. You also have this issue with MD doctor plates that are not being ticketed and taking up a lot of spaces throughout the city.
Thank you, Julianne. Are there any other members of the public? I thought I had seen someone else's hand up, but I don't see any. Will, do you see any members of the public?
I do not.
Okay, so why don't we go to the board?
Oh, actually, there is one more.
Oh, yeah.
They just came up. Timur Solomon, and there's actually Peter Chowla. Sorry.
Yeah, Tamor or Tamor, why don't you go
Yes.
ahead?
Hi, how are you? I'm actually just following up on what Julianne Britannia was speaking about in regards to the placards. So I'm lifelong resident of 61st Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. And we have now developed a new issue, and I don't know if that's going to be addressed by the committee. Please stop me if it is, if we're going to address this at a later time, in regard to the newly installed bike lanes on East 61st Street and East 62nd Streets. It ties in directly with the placards because, as experienced for myself yesterday, they installed these lanes, they changed the signage on Saturday from a normal Sunday parking, whereas there's no parking 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, with Sunday parking allowed. They changed that to no stopping rather, and made it a full bike lane with a bike lane, a buffer zone with pylons going along the street. This was done as part of, I believe, the mayor's initiative in regard to obviously bike safety and moving people through the city more easily during the COVID-19 pandemic. The issue here, and again, please stop me if this is going to be addressed separately with the bicycle lane, that came out of this was that, say for instance, forgetting the traffic patterns that changed completely in this area. We are part of Treadwell Farms Historic District. These are small homes with, yes, admittedly a low resident count per se, but as I said, I've lived here my entire life. I'm raising my family here. I have my 85-year-old mother here. And so there is something where I've seen how the traffic patterns in this neighborhood have changed because of the 59th Street Bridge and 2nd Avenue and how it's all developed. Placards have been an issue because they cut off a lane. Across the street from us, we have Trinity Baptist Church. That has a no parking zone. That no parking zone is understandably used by handicap placards, for which I have nothing to say, rightfully so. But yesterday and the day before and the day before that, there was a MD plate with a out-of-state surgeons committee, captain surgeons committee placard in its window. And I actually asked a traffic agent, is that a valid placard? She answered me, we don't. No, it's an MD plate. It can stand there. I said, well, my father was a doctor serving New York City with MD plates for 50 years before he passed. And he never parked there. He never ever looked at it as if an MD plate was valid as, parking anywhere, anytime. So I think the placards are a huge issue, but and do need to be addressed. I mean, even fundamentally, having a standardization as to which placards, these aren't even city placards. These are just any old placards, as Julianne said, that could be photocopied or laminated by anybody, and traffic ticket agents just pass right over them. Now, please let me know if I'm going on about something that we're going to be covering otherwise, because I really do want to address the issues that have developed since the installation of the bike lanes on 61st and 62nd Street, or more so specifically 61st Street, because that's where
we're going to talk a little bit, Tamor, we're going to talk a little bit about that
okay.
later, so there'll be time for you to address that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Peter Chowla.
Peter, you may have to.
Yeah, hi. I'll be very brief, just to say that I think we, given the expectation of increasing number of car trips in the city. We should be doing whatever we can as a community to try and discourage unnecessary trips. And so the more we can limit placards, the better. But as the previous speaker rightly pointed out, the traffic enforcement agents often don't enforce. So the more it can be automated, the better. They've done it with bus lanes. We've done it with red light cameras. The more that we could encourage DOT to look at how to do automated enforcement, the better. There's a couple of hot spots around where I live on 2nd Avenue at 91st Street. On 90th Street, there's often not real placarded vehicles. And then there are real placards often used on East End Avenue in front of Carl Scholl's Park, but they're 2-3 deep, unnecessary and illegally parked in dangerous places. So I think there's a lot of issues to address, and I really hope that you can pass a new resolution to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further anything from the public, why don't we go to Lori Boros? Lori, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. I want to say thank you to Julianne because I have been advocating this for quite some time. And as I've said in previous meetings, there isn't a technology. We could solve this problem with technology very easily. I happen to have a parking pass from the Department of Transportation, which has a QR code on it. So I don't know if the parking agents have the machine that reads them or not, but the point is that there is a way to do this with technology. And I am appalled by the number of fake placards that I see all over the place. I mean, people just take a sticker and slap it on something with a circle and it looks official. And then there's, they're taking up all the parking spaces. And really, I think that the major, or one of the major issues is that, because of COVID-19, everybody who has access to a car is coming into the city. I mean, people don't want to ride the subway. They're afraid to take a bus. And so if you have access to a car in any way, you're driving and you're bringing it into the city. And I am shocked and appalled by the traffic that has come back just in the last, few months. And when school starts, it's going to be another problem. But this is what I wanted to ask. When we passed the resolution in 19 about this very issue, it was to support our our city council person who had made a proposal, right? Whatever happened to that proposal? Who knocked it down? And the reason I'm asking this is because I also read an article that our mayor is considered a pro-car mayor, which I didn't know or realize that or even understand it. But so I want to know where, how it went up. It obviously went up the chain a little bit and then was knocked down. How are we going? We can't get something like this passed unless we know where the obstacles were.
So Lori, I take back what I said before. I was just looking into it. The resolution that we passed referred to 5 different proposed bills, and 3 of them, in fact, were enacted. They were enacted towards the end of 2019. One was a bill that would require the police department to evaluate at least 50 sites a week based on 311 complaints relating to the misuse of parking permits and obstruction of various infrastructure like bike lanes, bus lanes, etc. One requires 311 to accept complaints and photographs related to illegal parking and the misuse of parking permits. And the city would be is required to respond to complaints about a city vehicle blocking bike lanes, bus lanes, etc. And then there was the new standardized application process managed by DOT for city-issued parking permits. And there were other related pieces of legislation as well that were passed as well. I need to just go through them figure out what else has been done. But then I thought there was something else that happened subsequent to it. And I don't know if it was in regards to COVID upending things, but I thought the mayor then made a determination that some of that enforcement would not occur, if I recall. And I need to again look into that and
Well,
just.
I remember, thank you, Craig. I remember that there was a part of it that was going to go to each department that issued the parking permits, and to say and to give a specific list of the people who got them and the reason why they needed them. That was the key to my mind of, you know, why they needed the parking permits, because I know personally that there are many, like I always bring this up, you know, the press plates, you know, which was like, you know, everybody salivated about getting a press plate, and the press plates were all given to the executives so that they wouldn't have to pay for parking. It wasn't given to, like, you know, gumshoe reporters. It was given to the executives. So things like that, I think, should be taken away. And if you have to explain the reason why someone gets a press plate, that might, you know, a parking permit, that might be one of the deterrents. But the bottom line is that I personally think that we have to do this with technology, because there's no other way to determine what's a fake plate or not.
I agree with you, Lori. Can I suggest this? There are a lot of things that have happened in this, because at one point the mayor was suggesting ways to deal with counterfeit placards. I don't know where that is. You know, we wanted to get this discussion going. I'd like to put this over till next month so we can actually find out where some things have gone that were passed in 2019, as Craig was saying, and what the state of the play is. And then maybe we can craft a resolution next month that reflects where we are, the latest state of the thinking, and where we think we ought to go. Because my sense is we don't really have enough information. You know, we know what the problem is, and we don't have enough information on what's happened and what's on the books and what more we might want to do. So I know I'd like to be better prepared so we could formulate a resolution that makes sense, because we did pass a resolution last year supporting these specific legislative efforts, but I think we could probably do something more and different once we know exactly where we are. And so I'd like to put this off until next month. I think we'll be better prepared, and we'll come back.
I'm happy to do that as well. I'll just add, I did find the article that was alluding to back just in July, the announcement that the mayor essentially cut the funding, $5.4 million dedicated to the NYPD unit that was dedicated to stopping placard abuse. So that's part of the equation, I think.
Yeah, I think we'd like to see what's going on, and there may be things that we can suggest, because I think Lori's right. I think there does need to be a way that the traffic control agents can just, with their phone, detect when there's a placard that's either phony or that's not, or that's out of date, et cetera, but it's not legal anymore, and that'll help. Why don't we go ahead to the DOT updates, and no one from DOT is here, but I think, Craig, it might be useful at this point to go over the bike lane, temporary bike lane issues, because we've had some, we've had some correspondence with the DOT on this, and we've had some of the public who have written in, and it was raised by Mr. Solomon also.
Yes. So earlier today, even though we do not have DOT present at the meeting, we did reach out to them to ask, I think, what are some of the pertinent questions that people are most curious about. And they were able to answer a number of them. So let me just pull that up so I could give you their precise responses. So the questions that we put forward to them was, will the bike lane be on the left side of the street in all locations? And if not, which streets would it be on the opposite side? And the response was that the temporary bike lane will be on the north side of the street at all locations, and that it is have consistent alignment along the corridor. And then we asked, in July, DOT committed to allowing restaurants to provide outdoor seating all along 61st and 62nd Street. And the flyer that DOT put out promoting the new temporary bike lane indicates that the project will, quote, change parking regulations as needed to accommodate bike lanes and provide curb access. So we asked, how exactly is the bike lane going to be configured to not interfere with the outdoor seating that is currently being provided by these restaurants? And DOT responded that they have developed they've developed designs to accommodate existing roadway seating for open restaurants that are similar to treatments around construction sites. Bikes are routed around the dining areas. We should note that 2 of the restaurants that originally expressed concerns about the project, that's Amaranth and David Burke, do not currently have seating set up in the roadway. DOT reached out to them, and based on the responses that they do not plan to set up seating, they kept the lane curbside. Then we asked what type of parking regulation changes are going to be made for these temporary lanes. The response was, where floating parking cannot be accommodated, no stopping anytime regulations have been installed on the north side of the street. In many of those locations, commercial loading or overnight parking has been relocated to the south curb where there was previously no standing during the day. And then we asked about the designs that were depicted on the flyers. They had 2 examples of what they were going to do with the 30-foot wide cross sections, and then they had 1 example for the 34-foot wide cross sections. And they clarified that the floating parking will be included on the 30-foot wide blocks, which includes 61st Street from 5th Avenue to Lexington. Due to vehicular volumes and ongoing construction, they were unable to accommodate floating parking on 61st Street and 62nd Street from York to 2nd Avenue, where the street is also 34 feet wide. And then finally, in terms of the implementation, it's expected to be completed by the end of next week. So that is the latest and greatest information this afternoon.
Didn't they say they were coming back to us about permanent bike lanes?
Right, and they've always said, they emphasized this when they made their presentation in July, this eventually is going to become permanent with permanent infrastructure put in place. But before they do anything of that nature, they will come to Community Board 8 and provide a full presentation on the proposed design, which could theoretically differ from what's in place right now. This is right now just temporary bike lanes that are being put in there with temporary materials, and before anything that is to be done using permanent materials, they will come back to us. And we don't have a time frame for that yet. As it is, this was supposed to be implemented at the end of July, and here we are in early September, and it's clearly taking them time. So I don't know how quickly they're going to get around to coming back to us.
Okay, thank you. Craig, is there anything else, or we can go to the public
Yeah,
first?
I think we should go to the public and try to answer any questions that they may have. I don't know that we'll have any answers beyond that, but always happy to try.
Yeah.
So for the,
I see Judy Schneider first here. Judy, why don't you go ahead? Unmute yourself, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a little confused. I thought these bike lanes were to help people coming over the 59th Street Bridge going directly across to Central Park. So I assume that the bike lanes on 6-1 and 6-2 would start at 2nd Avenue. Are they in fact starting from York all the way across 6-1 and 6-2?
It would appear so. The flyer for the project did note that it was from York Avenue to Fifth Avenue, and the response that I was just reading, when I asked about the 30-foot versus 34-foot right-of-ways, did make it sound as if that they're going to be doing it to York as well.
Can
But-
I ask if anyone present knows whether they've put in the bike lane, let's say between 2nd and 1st on 61st or 62nd Street?
I think I saw Timur there raising his hand. Is that yes?
Yes. So basically, the signage has changed all across 61st Street from York Avenue to Fifth Avenue. Further, it changed the signage. Now, they haven't put in the physical bike lanes or painted the lines on most of these streets.
That's why he was asking.
Right. So the signage has changed from York Avenue all the way west to Fifth Avenue on 61st Street for the north side, as well as on 62nd Street from Fifth Avenue going east to well, actually, as far as 2nd Avenue. I'm sorry, I didn't go beyond 2nd Avenue on 62nd Street. But the lines have been painted only from 61st and 2nd to 61st and 5th. They haven't painted any lines or put any physical barriers, meaning the pylons, on 62nd Street whatsoever. I'm sorry, they actually painted some lines on 62nd Street from 5th Avenue, I believe, to Park Avenue, but no other blockages. Now, if I can elaborate, what they did was set a 10-foot bike lane plus buffer zone from 2nd Avenue on 61st through until Lexington Avenue on 61st, leaving a 10-foot wide bike lane and buffer zone, one active lane for traffic, which is tight, and then one parking lane, because they left the commercial zone parking with Muni meter on the south side of 61st Street from 11 a.m. till 7 p.m. There's no standing from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. as it was before. So fundamentally, what they've done was make it impossible for a car to stop if the commercial zone parking is used by trucks and commercial plates, which it is inevitably and basically constantly during those hours. It is impossible to stop a vehicle, to disembark, to drop off packages, to do anything of the sort between 2nd Avenue and Lexington Avenue without stopping all traffic. Then from Lexington Avenue to 5th Avenue, they decreased the size of the bike lane and buffer zone to 7 feet, affording, and I have photographs to show all of this. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for this meeting, so I don't have them to be able to show to you, to share right now. But what they did from Lexington Avenue to 5th Avenue was make it 7 feet wide, which then allows, should the parking on the south side of the street be filled, cars and trucks to unload without invading the actual bicycle lane on the north side. So because there's enough room to go into the buffer zone and not actually intrude upon the bicycle lane. Now, I'm a resident of 61st Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. As I said, I'm a lifelong resident. I was born into this house. I'm raising my children in this house.
I wanted to know who it was.
I have an 85-year-old.
I haven't finished my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can I just interrupt you 1 second, Timur,
Sure.
just to
Sure,
say,
please.
Chuck and Craig, the East 60s Neighborhood Association has gotten a number of calls, and since I haven't been out walking, I didn't understand that it was going to extend down to York Avenue. And with the bridge ramp emptying and all the other problems we have due to the bridge here in the 60s, people are not happy with this solution. Now, if I understand correctly, and this is my last question, that they're trying this and that this is temporary and that it's not permanent, and that DOT will take a look at this and maybe make changes, or is that an incorrect thought?
It's quite possible. I
said
think.
they would listen to what they wanted to hear, what comments we got, and that they would listen, and and when they go to make permanent, they'll come back to us. And so we do have a chance to,
Okay.
have some discussion with them on this. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Tamor. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, not at all. I'm sorry. Please interrupt me at any point if I seem to be going off topic, or elaborating too much along one line. But the point is this. I understand that this was announced. This went up in a very inopportune time, within the 5 brownstones, 2 to either side of me, they have not been occupied by their residents. The owners are not in residence as of maybe April. We have always been in residence. Our next door neighbor is a renter who just returned in August. We have 3 apartment buildings on the north side of 61st between 2nd and 3rd, and about, I believe, 15 private homes. Along that line, they've basically made it impossible for us to legally access our homes via anything, via car, or via taxi, whatever it might be. And as I said before, I have an 85-year-old, basically wheelchair-bound mother. I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 9-month-old daughter. I do have a car, which I park in a garage. And the only access I have to legally either put any of them in that car or bring groceries to my home, whatever it may be, is to hope that there's a parking spot across the street that isn't filled by trucks, where I would not be legally parked anyway, because I don't have commercial plates. Or I have no access. We can't park or stop on 2nd Avenue, as you all well know, because of the bridge. 3rd Avenue is, again, a no parking area unless there's a meter, but during most hours of the day, it's no parking. So it leaves us in a situation where we have now, our access to our own home has been removed from us. We have to take care of the curb, we have to clean the street, but yet we can't even park. When they were installing the lines, the representative from the DOT who was here was a gentleman named Sean Macias. He said he's the deputy director of the bicycle division. And when I asked him, just fundamentally, how am I supposed to access, or how am I supposed to get my mother in the car or my children in the car and put them in their car seats? He said that, to use these exact words, expeditious loading and unloading of passengers is allowed. You're allowed to invade the bicycle lane for expeditious unloading and loading. To which I said, what's expeditious? We aren't taxi drivers. We aren't livery car drivers. We're residents. And if we have no access to our curb, what are we supposed to do? And that was the question that I placed, because had there been public postings, had there been all these things, especially during this pandemic, I think you would have heard more voices from the actual people being affected by this. And I'm sorry.
If I can interrupt.
Sure.
We did have a hearing where there was a presentation by the bicycle people on July 1st in our July meeting, and there were a lot of people and there was a lot of discussion of it. So there have been concerns that have already been expressed to DOT.
No, I understand. I mean, my point is, obviously this is a reaction to the pandemic as well. But a lot of the residents that are being directly affected aren't actually here right now, and that's a big problem. Well,
I think when it comes to the permanent bike lanes, then hopefully more people will be back and we'll be able to get a fuller dialogue on it.
I hope so.
Thanks. Thank you.
And in a communication to us, the deputy commissioner said the temporary installation will be monitored after implementation, and it provides us an opportunity to inform development of the longer term design. So clearly they are going to be willing to listen and take into account actual experiences from when bike lane is in effect in a temporary way.
Well, I'm sorry, if I could just add one thing. Just then fundamentally, if the DOT would just approach the idea of removing the commercial meters and muni meter from across the street and make it what it always was in the past before the muni meters, trucks unloading and loading, then it would at least grant us access. Granted, again, for me to put my mother in the car, I'll have to dodge a bicycle lane, which we all know now has become not easy, especially with the use of e-bikes. People are running 30 miles an hour in the bicycle lane with electric bikes that are just as dangerous as motorcycles. So not only do we have to dodge right off the curb e-bikes and bicycles, but then a lane of traffic to get in a car, I'm even willing to do that. But then remove the muni meters from across the street so that we can actually have some place that is a no standing zone that we can stop at least to do this expeditious loading and unloading of passengers and packages.
All right,
I think that's an approach.
Thank you. Let's move on to some other members of the public that want to speak. Julianne, why don't you unmute yourself? I know you wanted to say something.
Julianne, you're unmuted.
Yep. Oh, okay. I was like trying to figure that out. I would absolutely reiterate what Tamor said. And I think one of the main things for people to take away is that these two blocks, 61st and 62nd, for those that don't know, already were incredibly heavily trafficked blocks. And they have an egress to the FDR. They have ramps coming off of the Queensboro Bridge. They are turning and backing up onto 2nd Avenue, trying to get onto the bridge from the front side of it. We have already been heavily trafficked. With the elimination of one lane, frankly, due to the bicycle lane, which is really effectively taking up one of what used to be 3 very small lanes, our streets just could not accommodate one lane only. As Tamor said, if you either have to eliminate the parking on one side, otherwise there's just effectively one lane. I have shared with Will, he's happy to post it if there's a way, a YouTube video from the first day at 8 a.m. And I appreciate people are sending this to me, that literally shows the backup onto 2nd Avenue, pedestrians unsafely trying to get through 2nd Avenue because already 61st Street going across from east to west was already backed up onto 2nd Avenue. And that one lane on as somebody else here spoke earlier, I think it was Lori, we don't even have full capacity in the city yet. People are on vacation. As Tamor said, a lot of residents are away, but wait till schools start. Wait till truck traffic starts coming back into the city with full deliveries. You know, we will see a huge increase, but as it is now with a first day of first installation, we are seeing major traffic issues. And, you know, excuse me, there's often traffic officers just a block away. And in the video, you can actually see a traffic officer on the corner of 61st and 2nd, not assigned to this bike lane issue, but really just in complete gridlock, unable to handle what he's being asked to handle. So I think it's a real safety issue. I think it's a real concern. And I think as we have the ability to go back at a future date, personally, I'm a biker. I'm, you know, very excited about more bike lanes. This is just a bad choice, the way they have this set up. And I have sent emails to Edward Pinkar, and I've been in conversations with him a little bit at DOT. I was hoping somebody from DOT would be here so that they can hear more from a larger audience of the public. But this is, at this point, an accident waiting to happen. And I think that there needs to be very specific rules for residents in particular, because residents, and I also should say, there are 2 houses of worship on these 2 blocks. And so being able to go to mass on a Sunday, whether you're part of Trinity Baptist Church or whether you're part of the Coptic Christian Church, those poor people, from what I understand, on Sunday exited their masses and actually had tickets on their cars when this wasn't even publicly announced and the signage hadn't even been changed yet. So there was a lot of sort of cart before the horse attitude here. And I think there's a lot of pieces that haven't been thought out well. And unfortunately, we're already seeing the impact, not only in traffic, but just, let's all hope for ourselves and our neighbors that nobody really gets hurt here.
Thank you, Julian. Let Peter Chawla, you want to make a comment? Yeah, Peter, go ahead, unmute.
So I don't have that much to say specifically about the 61, 62 bike lanes, except to say that there was some comment about why do they extend all the way down to York. So once we have an East River Greenway that actually is functioning and has a sound pavement, then a lot of bikes do come down the Greenway, and it's helpful to have access across all the way down to the East River. So that's an important point to think about. I actually wanted to raise something slightly different, but because we're in new business and we're talking about bike lanes, I hope you don't mind.
No, Peter, we're talking only about this issue. If you want to raise something that's different, that.
I'll come back on other bike lanes when you ask for new business then.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Why don't we go first to sort of reversed here, but why don't we go to old business? And I know that this is
we still had more comments from Valerie and Michelle want to speak on this.
I'm sorry, we have board comments. Yeah, you're right.
Jordan now.
Sorry, Valerie. And
no, that's okay.
Michelle.
I feel for these people, and I just think, once again, the DOT, it's already not working. And how long does it have to be temporary before they come in and look at it? So I would advocate that we get in touch with them I think it's really suspect that nobody's even here tonight, and that, even though they said we were going to have an opportunity to comment, nobody is really checking in with either the community board or any of the neighborhood associations that not govern these blocks, but at least have a look-see into them, whether it's East 60s or Julianne's organization. And, they're not really taking real-time feedback. And, what is the point of, if we're in the experiment and we already know it's not working, why does it continue? Why does it have to get worse before it gets better? They're in the temporary spot. And I think we should just call out the DOT for not really supervising this quote unquote temporary experiment. And we shouldn't wait. And if they're not going to show up, that shows that they don't even care what we're saying. And I really think that's what we should do.
Well, I think they said that everybody was all covering other meetings that just happened. Because we asked for someone when they said Colleen had to cover something else and they couldn't show up. But they said they were willing to listen to, what has been said here tonight, and we're going to go back and report and talk to them about it. So I think people will get a chance to weigh in on this. Michelle?
Yeah, a couple of things. I've had my hand up since item 3, so thank you for recognizing me. With respect, I'm going to just make very, very quick comments, but with respect to item 3, East 72nd Street, in that east of York is the majority of medical buildings and medical offices. So I think that street has to be very carefully and fully posted so that we can discuss that thoroughly at our next meeting. I really want to hear from the residents. With reference to the parking placards, I understand you want to put it off till our next meeting. I don't have a real objection to that, except to say, we really have nothing more to say about that, except that we'd like to see a more efficient system. And the only thing that would be more efficient is an electronic one. And if we wanted to make that resolution tonight, we certainly could do that because we cannot point to individual places where there are illegal or counterfeit placards. I can tell you one thing, as having had cars with MD plates are ticketed everywhere with the exception of where it says MD parking. So be under no illusion that you can park anywhere you want with an MD plate. Simply untrue. I have personal experience with that. In terms of the parking placards, if we could do a resolution saying that we want some electronic tracking, I think that would be a good idea. We can even do it tonight. With respect to 61st Street and 62nd, they rolled this out. The first public notice I got was, I think, yesterday about this. And the truth is, before we go any further with it, it needs to be posted. Those people on those blocks, we need to have them here and hear what they're saying. This is not unusual for the DOT not to bring things to us. We know that very often they do something and then they come to us to tell us about it when it's already a fait accompli. I hope it's not the case with this, but you know, with the buses on 79th Street, et cetera, they always tell you that they'll come back and look at it after it's in place for a year. And that's how they make a determination as to whether or not it's working. I hope that's not the case in this situation, but 61st and 62nd Street ought to have a prominent place on our agenda and be very well posted next month. So in terms of any more discussion about those bike lanes, without those residents here and without the DOT to listen to us, I think this conversation is probably mute. But if you did want to reconsider a resolution tonight about electronic tracking with the placards, I think it's something we can entertain. Maybe also in that resolution, reinforce our prior resolution and then have something we can take off the agenda for next month.
Excuse me, Michelle, I think we should wait, especially given that one of the bills that was enacted did have to do with the creation of a centralized electronic tracking system. So I really do think it would behoove us to.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
If that's passed, then that's good. But no, that's good. And when we put the 61st, 62nd on the agenda next month, we ought to make our feelings known to the DOT that we're not happy that this was put into place without advising us first and giving us an opportunity to comment and notify the public. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think we could move forward to new business now. You agree, Chuck?
Chuck got muted, so he's back.
Why don't we first, I'd like to go to old business actually first, and then we'll go.
Okay, yes, that was good.
Yeah, I think the schedule got sort of mixed up. It's really old business first. But anyway, I'd like to call on Rita Popper to, and I want to talk about this too, but after Rita, about East 91st Street. This is an issue that's been going on for a long time about the street condition, et cetera. Rita, why don't you go ahead, and I know that you've been working on this yourself for quite a while.
You know, with every rain, the situation gets worse. What we really need to do is establish that the DOT or DEP, when they put in or corrected a flooded sewer, that's where the water seeped underneath these pavers, which are just put into earth. They're not cemented in. And what we need to do is we've asked for the work order so that we can show that it is definitely related to the fixing of that sewer. I don't know how to do that. I mean, how many people can you ask? And meanwhile, this is a sledding street. This is, you know, when we're talking about that we need to open up streets, we have an open street that we close. You know, I need to understand the logic. But then again, after tonight, I don't understand the logic in anything. But that's where it stands, is that we need to get the work order as to when that sewer was fixed and how long it leaked, period.
Well, let me, I had a discussion with Ed Pinkar about this, Rita. And Ed basically said this, and this is one of these things where we have to figure out how we go forward from here. He said, look, DOT is never going to put this stuff, you know, the kinds of pavers back, they won't do that. They said that's not what they do and they'll never do it. So that's one thing. He said, maybe you can get DEP but he thinks that's a long shot to do that. And that's what you're talking about, getting into the work order about the sewer connection, et cetera, and then try to get them to do something. And what he said was, if you really want to get it done, you have to get the buildings to get it done. They have the pavers and they should do it. And so that's the city's position, at least from Ed Pinkar. So we're gonna, that's one of those things where we're gonna have to figure out a way to move this thing forward. And maybe we have to talk to our city council people and see if there's a way they can, you know, get this thing straightened out.
Question is not the pavers. The people, the owners of the buildings will put down the pavers. The street itself has risen up in places and has depressed in places.
Gotcha.
These people in the building, they didn't cause the leak to begin with, and they don't have the equipment to straighten the street out. The pavers are not Ed Pinkar wants the pavers to be a problem, and DEP wants the pavers are not the problem. Gotcha. It's the ground.
Okay, that's very helpful. If the buildings are willing to put the pavers back in, that's very helpful. Let's see if we can move this forward with DEP first, and then DOT, and at least get this underlying street fixed. Gotcha. Okay. Some other, Jordan.
Well, I'm unmuted. May I ask for something for the next meeting? We have a elderly population in my building, and they have seen that Omni, OMNY, that you can get on public transportation with your credit card. Seniors were wanted to know how they could get reduced fares with their credit card. Unless can we have somebody come and talk about Omni next time?
Sure. Okay, yeah. Now, I don't know, Jordan, did you have something on this, or did you want to talk about this, Jordan Woke?
No, I did not want to talk about this. I had another piece of old business.
Oh, another piece of old business. Okay, why don't you go ahead, Jordan? Give us another piece.
I guess it was 2 months ago, there were recommendations for opening various side streets in the area for pedestrians and bicycles. And as I recall, that list wasn't discussed, and it would be discussed this meeting. Anyone know what I'm talking about?
No,
I don't think we agreed to revisit them. We passed a resolution last month for 82nd Street between York and First on Saturdays. And I think we just left it as is at that point.
When you say last month, there was an August meeting?
In July.
That's okay. That's when I thought it was discussed, but
it was. But we only passed a resolution on that. We didn't do anything on the others.
Was the plan to discuss the others?
No.
Well then, business closed. 91st Street between 5th and Madison is now an open street on the weekends.
Well, the city does what it does, I guess.
Sometimes.
Right. Is there further old business? Is Elizabeth? I think Peter had some new business, but let's see if there's old business first. Elizabeth Rose, is this old business or new business?
My question was just related to James Cagney Place.
Okay, fine.
And when the Department of Transportation recognized it as a pedestrian plaza, does that imply that the Department of Transportation, does making it a public plaza imply that the city then is responsible for the maintenance of the underlying street? Because I think where some of this issue continues to rub is that when was demapped and not used as a public street, the Department of Transportation would not be responsible for the underlying street. And the city creates lots of water damage to private property on an annual basis. And I don't think the city is responsible for the restoration of that private property. So it sounds to me like this whole issue hinges on, does the conversion of that space to a public plaza implicate city responsibility for the underlying street?
Well, and Rita probably knows this, but it's still not, it hasn't been demapped it has not been demapped. It still is shown on the city map as a city street. It happens to be, they could at any time come back and say, we're opening this street to traffic. They have, they're not doing it, and we don't think they're going to do it, but the city is still, it still is considered on the map a city street. Rita, is I correct in that? You're shaking your head, yes. Okay.
Does TOT agree with that?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, DOT, just to be clear, it's always a city street. You got to declare it a permanent plaza, a pedestrian plaza, only because it's been closed for like 45 years. But it is a city street, it's not demapped, and it belongs to the city.
Right. Yep.
That's helpful, thank you.
Sure. Lori, Boris, did you want to say something on this old business issue or any issue?
I believe Peter also is a resident of that area and might have had something to say about James Cagney Place as well.
Peter?
Chawla?
Yeah, no, he has a new business item he wanted to raise, he said.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. We'll get
I have
Peter.
both actually, if that's allowed. So,
Yeah, of course it's allowed, yeah.
I mean, I live in the same building Rita does, and I actually raised this with the community board back in, I think it was September or October last year, this street condition. And at the time, Colleen was in the room. She joined us that time. And she said at the time, back in September, that's from Colleen from the Department of Transportation. Right. She said, DOT will not redo this until DEP takes responsibility for the leakage that created the situation. Which is really, I mean, this is crazy to me that we have two departments that are just both refusing to take responsibility. I mean, in my mind, when I walk on James Cagney Place, there's a sign up on the side, on the street side, that says it's Department of Transport responsibility. So this is Department of Transport responsibility, but they refuse to correct their problem. And we really need to ask them to do something about this. And I don't care about the internal politics between DEP and Department of Transport. It's a street problem. The Department of Transport should fix it. It's really unconscionable that it's been like this for 2 years.
Lori, I think it shouldn't be surprising that government agencies are saying it's someone else's responsibility. That's what we always have to work our way through. Lori, do you have?
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to back up what Rita said about inviting an Omni person, because the people with disabilities are also concerned about how they can get their disabled discount or whatever on the Omni system.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I think new business now. We'll go. I think Peter, you had the new business item. Peter Chawla had a new business item he wanted to raise. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, great. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so it was related to bike lanes as well. You know, I'm a regular cyclist in the city. My kids, my wife, are a cycling family. We get around regularly by bicycle. And so some of the new bike lanes that have come up have been very helpful. But as you might remember, early in the year or late last year, we raised the issue of, a number of advocates raised the issue of crosstown bike lanes. So I just wanted to raise to this committee that CB7 on the west side just, I think it was yesterday or the day before, passed overwhelming vote for a resolution for a two-way protected bike lane on 72nd Street. And to keep in line with what this committee has done earlier in the year, to ask for a cross-agency study or a cross-agency group to work on river-to-river bike lanes that work from East River all the way to the Hudson. it would be really helpful if we could, in this committee and then in this community board, also address the issue of a bike lane, protected bike lane in the 70s to connect up through Central Park and to the 72nd Street bike lane, which CB7 is proposing as of yesterday or the day before. Not to the exclusion of ideas for, which we had earlier in the year, for fixing the 96th Street bike lane through the park, which is partially responsible, at least its poor condition is partially responsible for the death of Dr. Kammerman, who died on his bicycle on the transverse on 96th earlier in the year. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any further, is there any further business that anyone has, or are we ready to adjourn?
Rita has her hand up.
Okay, Rita, yes, sorry.
I just wanted to add one thing, is that it is 91st Street is a bike lane, and because the top of the hill is cordoned off, the delivery people are using motorized bicycles and going up the sidewalk. And there are benches at the lower half of the street, and they're mostly elderly people, and everybody is trying to be outside. So someone's going to get hurt with the bicycles on the sidewalk. That's the only way they get delivery up. They won't use the center because they have to get off and walk their bike around the area that's cordoned off. I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you, Rita. You reminded me on the electric bikes and things like that. Our board chair, who is here tonight, Alita, has asked if we were going to take up the issue of having the city pass something, because the state law came to legalize these things and scooters and stuff like that. But there is the opportunity for the city to pass, a city like New York, to pass its own laws. And that's something we're going to take up. We'll probably put that on the agenda for next month. I think we have one more person. Is Diane Malachi Moomin Pinkston like to talk, say something?
Yeah.
An issue?
Can you
before-
hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us? Yes, we hear you.
Okay, wait, let me try this. Let me take off of.
We can hear
Can
you.
you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me or you can't?
Can.
Yes. Yes.
You can? Okay. I'm gonna try to talk quick. So what I want to say, it's very pertinent that everyone, concerned bicycles. I'm a food deliverer myself, and I also ride bikes for exercise because of my illnesses. So I understand people's concern, but they have also keep in mind when people rolling up on the sidewalk. Also, because they be going to a building that is on the sidewalk. And like I said, I can't relate to some people because even some bicyclists next to me sometimes, it's kind of, oh, okay, I didn't know that person's coming. Sometimes they're moving fast. But I would say, let's not blame it on anyone. A person like me, and I know that any other like me, we are very cautious with our bike, and it's kind of disturbing sometimes when the pedestrians complain. I have people yelling at me, ride your bike on the street. And sometimes, honestly, I curse at them and say my business because I'm going to the business right there, So, I think the attitude towards the bikers, all of them, put them all in the same pool, were wrong. And also give it some consideration that sometimes bicyclists are delivered to the business that's on the sidewalk. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Understood. Okay. If there's no further business, I think we can, Valerie Mason Yes. Go ahead, Valerie. You have our valedictory statement here.
Sorry, I got thrown off. I sent you something about how doctors can get their parking tickets fixed for just $25 a year. You'll see it in the chat. You can just join the New York Medical Society, and they promise that they waive $70,000 in parking tickets each year. But besides that, I wanted to raise this in old business. We've been talking about these benches that are on the sidewalks, and we have gotten really bad service, I believe, from the Department of Transportation on an issue that we've been talking about for over 2 years. These defective benches that we have, and I have been asking Colleen Chattergoon for at least 11 consecutive weeks to tell me whose responsibility it is to clean these benches that are being used as essentially trash receptacles and open homes for rats and other vermin. And I can't get her to answer the question. I didn't realize that it was such a difficult question. But, you know, Alita and Chuck and Craig, you've been on some of these emails. I can't believe that this is that difficult a question to answer. And I find it just, you know, we're all volunteers, and it shouldn't be that difficult to answer this question. I mean, we have a bench that here near 72nd Street that's in front of the subway, and I can't take anyone to take responsibility for it. And if nobody is going to clean it, then I think it needs to be removed. And there's just no response from the Department of Transportation. And I think that's a theme we've been listening to tonight, is that they take our complaints and they put them in some abyss, and we never get any real action on anything. And I think we need to, in this environment, hold their feet to the fire a little bit here, whether it's the fact that they're giving revocable consents without consulting with us, or, you know, putting in bike lanes and not getting feedback, or, you know, whatever it is. I think that they just need to be more accountable. And if that means that, you know, Ed or Colleen has to be on these phone calls, they need to be here. They need to be responsive, and they're just not being responsive. And I don't think we should let them get away with it. So that's my valedictory address for tonight, Chuck.
Thank you. And we'll bring that up with Ed. Absolutely. Okay, so I think we're ready to adjourn without objection. Thank you, everyone.
Alita does have her hand up. I don't know if you wanted to.
Who does, Alita?
Yes.
Oh,
We
yeah,
can skip it.
of course.
I'll be very fast. I just want to say that I also am very disappointed that DOT did not appear at the meeting tonight, and find it troubling, particularly in light of what has been said and what Valerie said. And I will end on that. Thank you so much. You've shown incredible patience and kindness and a great deal of warmth, both you and Craig.
Thank you. And we'll be after DOT on those issues.
Without the patience, kindness, and warmth, perhaps.
Right. So we are adjourned, and thanks everyone for participating. Next month.
All right, good night, everyone.